Hello everyone and welcome to this quick masterclass on ratios wherein I will be discussing the concepts of ratios that you need to know to be able to crack the test, and we are going to solve some questions which will help you test those principles as well. So let's get going with what we are going to cover. So the first thing that we are going to cover is the rules of ratios. So what all rules are there? You might have heard of a lot of things called componendo, dividendo, alternando, invertendo and so on and so forth. So we'll try to cover them. We'll also look at the constant product of ratios. So if you want to keep the product constant, if something happens to ratio 1, what should be happening to ratio 2? The third thing is representation in terms of 2-digit numbers, 3-digit numbers and so on and so forth. And some shortcuts is what we are going to look at. Constant gap change. Now, this is basically a shortcut that you have when it comes to ratios of ages or incomes versus expenditure versus savings kind of questions, wherein the gap has to remain the same. So constant gap change, what exactly do we do? And we are going to look at some common question types that we come across in terms of ratios. Now let's look at the cheat sheet first of all. Now in terms of the cheat sheet, you are going to have these properties that are there. So the core properties are fairly straightforward. You are basically looking at properties that include A by B equals C by D, implying that A into D equals C into B. Also, if you look at the comparison of ratios, if AD is greater than BC, if the product of the extremes is greater than the product of the means, that is what they are called, then we can say that the first ratio is greater than the second ratio. If not, then the first is less than the second ratio. And if they are equal, then as we saw earlier, they are going to be equal ratios. Now, in terms of the other things that we have, equal ratio property, there is one small thing that you need to understand. If A by B equals C by D equals E by F equals K, then the addition of the numerators divided by the addition of the denominators will also be equal to K. Now, in terms of these properties that we have, you can have a look at these 5. Invertendo basically means the ratios become inverted rather. Alternando basically means that the extremes change their positions or the means change their positions. So in this case, the means are changing their positions. So A by C equals B by D. Componendo basically means that if I add 1 to each ratio, then what will happen? A by B plus 1 will be equal to C by D plus 1 if A by B equals C by D. And then I'm going to get A plus B by B equals C plus D by D. Similarly, if I subtract 1 from each ratio, what will happen? We'll get A minus B by B equals C minus D by D. Componendo and dividendo done together is going to give us A plus B upon A minus B equals C plus D upon C minus D. Now, in terms of the shortcuts that are there, you have to understand this one bit, that if A is to B has been given to us, then the way in which we write this is AX is to BX or AK is to BK, where K is not equal to 0 and K is some constant. In terms of constant product, as I was saying, if there is a product X into Y that is a constant, then if X becomes A by B times itself, then Y will become B by A times itself to keep the product constant. So, for example, if you are looking at price versus consumption. So let's say, for example, the price now becomes 5 by 4 times the initial price. Now what should happen to the consumption? The consumption should become 4 by times of the initial consumption, so that these parts get cancelled out and I am going to get PC, which was the product earlier. So that is basically what we mean by the constant product ratio. In terms of one part versus rest, this is very important. So if let's say, for example, there are 4 people A, B, C and D, and A has, let's say, 1/3 of B plus C plus D, then we can easily say that A will be 1/4 of the total, which means A will be 1/4 of A plus B plus C plus D. Now, this formula is very important because in a lot of cases, people just add 1 to the denominator, but that is not the case. Let's say, for example, A had 2 by 5 times of whatever B plus C plus D had. Then what will be the resultant of this? I will basically say that A will be 2 by 7 times the total. That is what I will write this as. So remember this as M upon M plus N. It has to be 2/7 of the total, not 2/6 of the total. So it will not work like that. So make sure that you understand this distinction clearly. Constant gap strategy is very important. So whenever you have, let's say, 2 people whose ratio of ages is 4:9, right? And I am saying that 5 years later, what is going to happen is their ages are going to be in the ratio of 3:4. So I have to understand what are their current ages, let's say, for example. Then what am I going to say in this context? Sorry, 4:7, let's say. And I am asking you as to what all are their ages in today's context or 5 years down the line. We have to understand that if 2 people are of ages 4 units and 7 units, let's not say years. Let's say this person is 4 units of age, this person is 7 units in terms of age. The gap between the two will always remain the same. So if 4:7 is the gap, then 3:4 does not keep the gap constant. So to make this gap of 1 equals to a gap of 3, I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 3 each. And so I'm saying that in 5 years, 4 is transitioning to a 9. So 4 is going ahead by 5 units in 5 years. So 1 year is 1 units. So in this particular case, you are going to have 4 units, that is 4 years for person 1 and 7 units or 7 years for person 2. So the first person will be 4 years old, the second person will be 7 years old. 5 years later, the first person would have been 9 years old and the second person would have been 12 years old, which will make the ratio of ages 3:4. So that is something you have to understand. Constant gap strategy. This works in terms of incomes, expenditure, savings as well. So if two people have the same savings or two people spend the same amount, then we know that the gap between the income and the savings or the income and the expenditure has to be constant. So that is what we understand in this context. Reverse process is a very important way to solve questions which involve some amount of repetition, or you can say recursive nature. So let's say, for example, you might have heard of this type, that there is a basket full of mangoes. Let's say there are 3 robbers who steal those mangoes, and then what happens is during the night the first robber goes and he takes 1/3 of all the mangoes that are there in the basket and 1 more mango and goes to sleep. After some time, the second robber wakes up, takes 1/3 of whatever is the remaining number of mangoes, takes 1 more and goes to sleep. And then the third person goes and takes away whatever is 1/3 of the remaining number of mangoes, takes 1 more and then goes to sleep. But at the end of it, the basket becomes completely empty. So how many mangoes were there to start with if no mango was cut or split at any point in time? So these are the questions wherein you will have to use the reverse process, right? So you have to understand one thing in this context, that whatever is left, let's say you take 1/3 and then 1 is left, then what would have been left over had it been for those 1/3 wala example, right? So in this context, the numbers are not numbering, but the idea is that if it were half plus 1, it would have made more sense. So let's say the last person takes 1 mango at the end, but before that he has taken half of whatever was there. If half has been taken away, then half remains. So before the last person went in, the last robber went in, there were 2 mangoes. He took half of 2 and then 1 more. Before the last person went, again let's assume half plus 1. So half of the total number of mangoes plus 1. After that has been taken off, there are 2 mangoes left. So before the 1 mango was taken, there were 3 mangoes left, but 3 is after half had been taken. So 6 would have been there after the first robber left and when the second robber appeared. Again, you will have 6 mangoes, 6 plus 1, 7, 2s are 14. And that is basically how you can solve. You will have to solve it backwards. That is basically the idea behind these questions. And in terms of percentage change in ratios, if A by B is equal to M by N, and if A increases by X%, the new ratio will be what? Of course, A has increased by X%. So the numerator would have become 1 plus X by 100 times itself. So that is basically going to happen to the ratio as well. Now, in terms of the question types, you have to understand these question types really well, understand what all are the traps that are set in these question types, and you should be able to handle these question types for sure. Now, in terms of the key tips that are there, always compare using cross multiplication, especially if you are not very good in terms of LCM, HCF, making the ratios constant and approximating. If you're not good at that, always try to cross multiply, finish it off then and there. You can use LCM or convenient numbers to eliminate fractions. So in case someone is saying 2/5 of the total, so instead of assuming total to be X, assume total to be 5X. So 2 by 5 into 5X is going to give you 2X. So you can do that. Convert complex statements into simple ratios first. I always mention this thing, that if you are looking at an arithmetic question, you will have to start by looking at one part of a sentence, one clause, write down what it means in mathematical language, then go to the next part. If you read the entire question, you are not going to be able to memorize and recollect and reproduce everything in the form of equations. So it will be a good idea for you to look at one part, put that in the form of an equation, then go to the next part, put that in the form of an equation, and then you will start to see something shaping up. Focus on the required parts, ignore irrelevant terms. I'm going to show you an example of that, but you have to understand that you are not supposed to get into the depth of things and figure out the individual values, especially if the question asks you what is the sum or what is the value of 3x plus 4y, then you need not find the individual values of x and y in many cases. So that you have to understand. And in terms of solving, the moment you are able to solve things mentally, especially in terms of ratios, you would have done a great job. Now, this is basically an overview that I have provided you. This particular image is going to be put up in the description box as well. So do check out this particular cheat sheet so that you can refer to it and you can make your life easier. Also, what I will be doing is I will be sharing the link to the program that we have launched, which is the Quant Workshops program. So do check out this program. This is basically for all those of you who are kind of not very comfortable with quant in general and you are dreading that quant section. So for all of you, this will be very useful, purely because we are going to solve a lot of questions over these 30 live workshops. So I'm planning to cover more than 500 or even 600 questions during these workshops. And beyond that, there are going to be 2000 practice questions which you can go through so that you are able to identify the questions properly, come up with the best solution that is there, and get a reasonable score at the quant section. Now let's start with the questions. So you can have a look at this particular question, try it out on your own, and then you can have a look at the solution. It's a fairly straightforward question. So just try this and then you can refer to the solution. So let's see. Each of Aman, Bhuvesh and Chandan has a certain number of coins with him. The ratio of the number of coins with Aman to that of Chandan. So you have A, B and C. Now Aman to Chandan is 2:3. So I'll just say 2:3 here. And then what is going to happen? The ratio of number of coins of with Chandan to that of Bhuvesh is 5:9. So Chandan to Bhuvesh is 5:9. So the order is very important here. So Chandan has to be a multiple of 3 and 5. So let's say Chandan is 15. Now if Chandan is 15, then what happens? If 3 becomes 15, 2 will become 10. If 5 becomes 15, 9 will become 27. So this is basically what exists. So we can easily say that let Aman have 10x coins, let Bhuvesh have 27x coins, and let Chandan have 15x coins. Now we know that the number of coins with Bhuvesh is 35 more than 2 times the number of coins with Aman. So 35 more than 2 times the coins with Aman. So 2 times the number of coins with Aman is 2 into 10x. Plus 35 if we do, then I'm going to get the number of coins with Bhuvesh, that is 27x. So I'm going to get 20x plus 35 equals 27x, or I'm going to get 7x equals 35, or x equals 5. This is what I'm going to get. Now if x equals 5, then we have to figure out what is the total number of coins with Aman, Bhuvesh and Chandan put together. So 27 plus 15, 42 plus 10, 52. 52 is basically what I have in this context. So 52 is what I have, 52x is what I have, then 52 into 5 should be equal to 260. So 52x or 52 into 5, that is 260, should be the answer to this particular question. Let's look at the next one. Now try this question and see if you're able to get the answer to this one, and then we can see the solution that I'm going to show. So let's see. So on the bank of a river, there are 2 temples A and B. The river has some magical powers by which it triples the quantity of flowers put into it. Pankaj takes some flowers and puts them into the river. So some flowers he takes and puts them into the river. Then he divides them into n equal groups and offers one of the groups at temple A. He puts the remaining flowers into the river again. Then again he forms n equal groups and offers one of these groups at temple B. The ratio of the number of flowers offered at temple A and the number of flowers remaining after being offered at temple B is 1:12.5. So whatever was offered at temple A divided by whatever is remaining after being offered at temple B is 1:12.5, or you can say 100 by 8 or 50 by 4 or 25 by 2 kind of a thing, right? So that is basically what we are talking about here. So let's see what we can get here. Not 25 by 2, 2 by 25. So let's see what we are able to get here. So the first thing I have to understand here is there are 2 temples A and B. Fine. River has some magical powers. Great. It triples the quantity of flowers put into it. Now if Pankaj takes some flowers and puts them into the river, then he divides them into n equal groups. So let's say Pankaj takes x flowers and puts them into the river. So what happens to the flowers? It becomes 3x. So now Pankaj has 3x flowers with him. He divides them into n equal groups and offers one of the groups at temple A. So if he divides it into n equal groups, each group will have 3x by n flowers, and one of those groups is being offered at temple A. So A gets 3x by n. Now if A gets 3x by n, how many remain? So you are going to say 3x minus 3x by n. This is the number of flowers that remain after this thing has been done. Now what happens is he puts the remaining flowers into the river again. So what will happen? If he puts it back into the river, it will become thrice of this. So I'll get 9x minus 9x by n. I'll not simplify it. I'll just keep it as it is and I'll simplify it later. Now what happens? He again forms n equal groups and offers one of these groups at temple B. So what goes to temple B? I will say that in temple B, 1/n of these will go. Similar to this one, 3x by n, because n groups were there. So 1 by n into 9x minus 9x by n will go to temple B. So basically how much remains? So if you can say that 1/n has gone to temple B, 1 minus 1/n should remain. So how many flowers remain after this iteration has been done? So we started with 9x minus 9x by n, and I'll be left with 1 minus 1 by nth fraction of these flowers. So I am basically saying that this will be equal to 9x into 1 minus 1 by n the whole square in a way. So now I know that A is 3x by n, and whatever remains after A and B have both been offered flowers is going to be 9x into 1 minus 1 by n the whole square. So let's try to see what we get. So in this context, if I divide these things, I'll get 3x by n divided by 9x into 1 minus 1 by n the whole square. So I'm basically going to get it in this form, right? So 3x by n, and in the denominator, I am going to have this 9x into 1 minus 1 by n the whole square. So this is what we will get. And this I know is equal to 1 upon 12.5 or 2 by 25, let's say. Now the good thing is x will get cancelled out and I'll only be left with n's here. So I should be able to get my answer in this context. So what is going to happen here? Let's see. I can also cancel out a 3 and the 9 here. So I'll get 3 in the denominator. So what am I going to get? I'm going to simplify this as well and then see what happens. So 1 minus 1 by n the whole square. So my denominator will now be n times n minus 1 the whole square. So n square minus 2n plus 1. This will be my denominator and this will be multiplied by 3. And my numerator will basically be n square. So n square upon this one will be equal to 2 by 25. That is what we are going to get. Now we can just use a bit of calculation and figure it out. So first of all, these two n's will get cancelled out. And I will be left with this part which says 25n equals 3 into 2, 6n square minus 3 2s are 6 2s are 12n. And I'm going to get plus 3 into 2, that is plus 6. So effectively I'm going to have 6n square minus 37n plus 6 equals 0. Now I know how to split this. I need the product to be 36. I need the sum to be minus 37. So the split will be minus 36 and minus 1. If I switch the signs, I am going to get 36 and 1. And I will have to divide it by the coefficient of x square or n square in this context, which will give me 6 and 1 by 6. Now, of course, the number of flowers or number of groups cannot be 1 by 6. So the number of groups has to be 6. So the correct answer to this question will be n equals 6. Difficult question, but you can manage it if you know what exactly are you going for. Let's look at the next question. Now, this is basically a question that you can try out on your own and then have a look at the solution that we have. So if 3x plus y is to xy is to 3x minus y equals 7 is to 12 is to 1, you have to find x plus y upon x minus y. Now you have to understand one small thing. I have two equations. I have many equations, but I need two equations to find the value of two variables. So instead of going for all of this, what if we just look at this part? So let's say I look at 3x plus y upon 3x minus y equals 7 by 1. So I am going to get 21x minus 7y equals 3x plus y, or I am going to get 18x equals 8y, right? That is what we are going to get. Now we have to understand, we have to find the value of x plus y upon x minus y. So one thing we can do is we can just reduce this 9x equals 2y. Let's say we do this. Now one thing we can do is in this context, let's convert everything to 2y because that might make our life easier, because you can also do it in this manner. You can say that y equals 4.5x. Even that is fine. We can do that as well. So if I know that y equals 4.5x, then what we can do? Instead of y, I'll put 4.5x. I'll get 5.5x in this context. Sorry, 9x equals 4y. And that's why I'm going to get 9 by 4. Y equals 9 by 4x, right? So instead of y, I'm going to put 2.25x. So if I add, I'm going to get 3.25x divided by x minus 2.25x. So minus 1.25x. I'm going to get a negative number. There's only one negative option. That has to be our answer, but let's see. So x will get cancelled out. I'll get 25 5s are this one, 125. 25 1s are 25. I'll be left with a 75. 25 3s are 75. So our answer is option B, minus 13 by 5. So that is one thing we can do. The other thing I was talking about is, because I have got everything in the form of 4y, if I want to avoid these fractions, what I can do is I can write this as 4x plus 4y upon 4x minus 4y. This is what we need to find out. Multiply the numerator and the denominator by 4. So in this context, what I will get is 4x plus 4y. 4y is nothing but 9x. So I am going to get 13x, and 4x minus 9x is going to be minus 5x. So minus 13 by 5 will again be our answer. So you can do it that way and avoid all the decimals and fractions altogether. Now look at this question, interesting question. Try this out on your own and then have a look at the solution that's going to follow. A milkman has L liters of mixture of milk and water in which the ratio of milk to water is P is to Q. And after selling 1/3 of the mixture, he added L by 2 liters of milk and L by 3 liters of water to the remaining mixture, and so on and so forth. Now this is a tough question if you look at it. But if you take your variables well, your life will become much easier. Now I need L to be present, that has milk and water, fine. But I also need L to be divisible by 2 and divisible by 3. So instead of taking it completely as 6x, can we say that let the amount of milk in the original mixture be 6m and the amount of water in the original mixture be 6w. It doesn't matter whatever it is. M can be 1 by 2 as well. W can be 200 as well. We don't care. But 6m is the amount of milk in the original mixture and 6w is the amount of water in the original mixture. Now we know that 6m by 6w is P by Q. That is the first equation that we have. After selling 1/3 of the mixture, so after selling, how much is going to remain? Now 1/3 of the mixture has been sold, so 1/3 of milk has been sold, so 4m remains, and 1/3 of the water also has been sold, so 4w remains. Now he has added L by 2 meters of milk. L by 2. What was L? Original was L. L by 2 meters of milk. So original was 6m plus 6w is what we had, right? So L liters of mixture of milk and water. So if L by 2 liters of milk has been added, then what is the quantity of milk now? The quantity of milk here will be 4m, which already existed, plus L by 2. So the amount of milk will be 3m plus 3w. Now w has got nothing to do with water. It's just the quantity that we have codified. And L by 3 liters of water. So what was the amount of water earlier available? Earlier 4w water was available. So I'll say 4w, and L by 3, which basically means 2m plus 2w is the new quantity of water. Now this is basically equal to Q by P. You have to find the value of Q by P. Now if this is equal to Q by P, can we say that this is going to be equal to 6w by 6m, because P by Q was 6m by 6w. Now of course this 6 will get cancelled out, and what will we be left with? 4m plus 3m is 7m plus 3w, I'm so sorry, plus 3w divided by 2m plus 6w. This is going to be equal to w by m. Now what are we going to get? If I cross multiply, I am going to get 7m square plus 3mw is equal to 2mw plus 6w square. If I take everything to one side, I am going to get 7m square plus mw minus 6w square equals 0. This is what I am going to get. Now if you look at this in an interesting manner, you will be able to find something very cool. So I am basically saying that 7m square, this mw can be written as plus 7mw minus 6mw minus 6w square equals 0. And how does this help? It tells me that 7m into m plus w minus 6w into m plus w equals 0. So 7m square plus 7mw minus 6mw minus 6w square. That tells me that 7m minus 6w into m plus w equals 0. Now m plus w cannot be equal to 0 because that will mean that the entire mixture was 0. So this can't be 0. That tells me that 7m minus 6w equals 0, or m by w is going to be equal to 6 by 7. But we have been asked the value of Q by P, which is w by m. So w by m is going to be 7 by 6. Of course, there's only one option. There could have been one more option which said 6 by 7, but 7 by 6 is going to be our answer for this question. Right, option C. Now let's look at the last question. Try this out on your own and then have a look at the solution. So let's see. So Ajay has a certain number of rupee 1, rupees 2 and rupees 10 notes with him. The ratio of the number of rupee 1 notes and that of rupees 2 notes is 4:3. If the number of rupees 10 notes is more than the total number of rupee 1 and rupees 2 notes put together, then the second lowest amount with Ajay can be. So lowest amount will be something. Second lowest will be one step higher than that. So let's see what we can do with this. So if I want to find the lowest amount, then what will happen? I will have to ensure that I have 4 1 rupee coins, I have 3 2 rupees coins, and effectively how many 10 rupees notes, how many 10 rupees notes should I have? I should have more than 4 plus 3, that is 7. So the minimum number of 10 rupees notes is 8. So what will be the value here? It will be 4 plus 3 2s are 6 plus 80, that is 90. Now this is the minimum value that Ajay should have, which basically tells me that 80 cannot be my answer, 90 cannot be my answer. Now there is a small trap in this question. Some people might think that, okay, 4:3 is the ratio that we have, let's double it. And then you will say that let there be 8 1 rupee coins and 6 2 rupees coins. Now what will happen? 8 1 rupee coins will contribute value equals 8 6 rupees 2 rupees coins will notes will amount to 12 rupees in total, and because there are 14 notes here, the number of 10 rupees notes has to be at least 15. So I am going to get 8 plus 12 plus 150, that is 170. So some people might say that 170 is the answer, but it is not, because we haven't been told that the number of 10 rupee notes has to be one more than. That has not been said. We have been told that it is more than the total number of 1 and 2 rupee notes. So what we can do here? We can basically say that we can just add 10 to it and we will get 100 here. So instead of 4 3 8, we can have 4 notes of rupee 1, 3 notes of rupees 2 and 9 notes of rupees 9. All the things are satisfied, and that's why we can get 100 as well. So the point is 170 will not be the second lowest amount with Ajay. The second lowest amount will be none of these options. It can be 100 in a way, because as soon as you increase the 1 rupee notes by something, the 2 rupee notes also have to follow suit. So that is basically why 100 will be the second lowest that we can get to. So I hope you liked this video. I hope your concepts of ratios are a bit clearer now compared to what they were earlier. If you have liked this video, do leave a like and do share it with your friends so that a lot of people get to experience this content. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, do subscribe to the channel, and we'll come up with more such videos in the future. If you guys are interested, and if you have any other suggestions, do let us know in the comment section. Do check out the Quant workshops program that we are going to start from the 17th of August. So make sure that you sign up before that so as to reserve your place in the batch. And I'm sure you are going to benefit a lot from that particular program. I'll see you again in the next video. Till then, take care everyone, and bye everyone.